Cynthia on the Space Channel, and we're really happy to be here at Toronto Comicon. It's been a great day so far. My colleague AJ was here yesterday, and you know, I say this to people all the time. I'm really lucky to have the job I do to get to do inner space, and the highlight is coming to conventions like this. And the highlight of the highlight is always doing panels like this, especially with our next guest. Whether you knew him from his work at Stargate SG-1, whether you've recently seen him on Torchwood Miracle Day or his amazing role in Breaking Bad, you definitely love him as an actor. But it's probably likely that you especially know him, of course, for playing Q in Star Trek: The Next Generation, DS9, and Voyager. Please welcome John Delancie.
I'm going to stand. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I don't need this.
Welcome to Toronto.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You've been before?
I have been before. I was up here. I was up here a couple of years ago doing a show with the symphony.
Symphony. Woo!
And you see it?
Yes.
And it was a lot of fun. It was sort of like doing a little rock concert in the symphony orchestra space. I hope you've gone back to the symphony because it's a great place, and I spent a lot of time with classical music. So
Yeah. You recently directed your first opera as well, I read.
Well, not my first opera, but yeah.
Directed it,
Right. No. Should we open it up to
absolutely.
Okay. What do you want to know? What this gentleman did not include is the most unusual inclusion on my opus of work, which is I don't even know how to approach this. How many of you are My Little Pony fans?
Discord!
Yeah, well, this is a lady here, okay? The fans that I've been dealing with are like, I don't know, 45-year-old guys. And that really took me by surprise. But I now have decided that I have to watch this show, which I've been in and haven't seen yet. It's wonderful. Yeah, that is really good. I mean, are you kidding?
No, My Little Pony.
Yeah, okay. Well, I have to watch it.
Can you hear John at the back?
Yes, no.
There's noise out of the door.
Can you hear me? Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
All right.
okay.
So here, put two of them up.
Two of them up there.
So what do you want to know?
Well, can we start off with being cast as Q in Star Trek: The Next Generation? Can you talk a bit about that?
Oh. I slept with Gene Roddenberry. But we do what we need to do. No, I just auditioned. I auditioned and got the role. And I mean, you know, I feel like I've told these stories a bazillion times now. Do you know this story?
No.
I was doing a play at the time, Terra Nova, and I got a call from my agent saying, "There's an audition. You have an audition tomorrow at Paramount, 4:30 in the afternoon, for Star Trek." And I went, "Well, I thought they did Star Trek already." "Well, yeah, I don't know. They're doing it again." And it's, oh, gee, it must be a typo. And she's reading. I don't know, it's just a letter, Q. And I said, "But you know, I'm doing this play, and it's going to be really difficult for me to get out." She said, "Well, do your best." I didn't go. A week later, I got a call from my agent saying, "You didn't go." I said, "No, I know, I'm doing a play." She said, "Well, if I can get it for you during your lunch hour, would you go?" I said, "Yes." So I went the next day. I did my audition. I walked out. I was there for maybe 15 minutes, all told. I walked out, and a guy came out with me, bigger than I am. And he said, "You make my words sound better than they are." And I said, "Well, you must be the writer." He said, "I'm Gene Roddenberry." No idea who that was. And he said, "We're going to be seeing more of you." And I said, "Well, yeah, okay. I've heard that one before." And as I was running to the door to get back to rehearsals, another guy stopped me who had been in the audition, and he said, this is a payback. I said, what are you talking about? He said, about 6 years ago, I was flat on my back in the hospital with a quadruple bypass operation. And every day at 1 o'clock, and I knew what he was talking about now, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, because I had been on a soap opera called Days of Our Lives, you made me laugh when I thought I was going to die. And I decided that if I ever had an opportunity, I would call you in, and that's why you're here. And so now it was important to find out when they were going to shoot. And they gave me a date, and the date was, in fact, when I was going to be in Japan with this show, with this Terra Nova. So I turned it down. And they said, well, this is going to be a really important show. You need to get out of the show you're doing now. And I said, you know what? If I do that, and we have 6 weeks between now and shooting, what happens if a better show than your show comes up? Do you expect me to get out of your show? So they said, you know, what we'll do is that we will change the shooting date for when you were supposed to come in. So, but we have to have you, so we'll condense all your stuff into 2 weeks, but we have to have you on Monday, the whatever it is. I go home, and for the first time, I'm actually wondering, well, when do I finish in Japan? My last show was Sunday afternoon in Tokyo. And I went, it's just not going to work out. And my wife went, international dateline. So I left on Sunday at 6 o'clock in the afternoon to fly back to Los Angeles. Somehow I arrived at, 10 o'clock Saturday night, I don't know. And I was on the set at 6 in the morning on Monday, and that's why I'm here today.
Thank you, so Stanford
Yes.
Fleming.
Did you realize when you auditioned how unique the role would be and what it would play?
Did I realize when I auditioned how unique the role would be? No, I didn't. And 3 days into shooting, we started with the trial scene, and 3 days into shooting the trial, I heard behind me, "You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into." And I turned around, and it was Gene. And I go, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, "Oh, you'll see." Again, that's why I'm here today. Yes?
Do you have a most memorable moment in terms of your favorite blooper or a blooper that sticks out that you don't forget?
Do I have the most memorable blooper moment? Not really. I have to tell you, everybody asks me that. And if you're on a show for 7 years and you do, I don't know how many episodes they did, 150 or 300 or whatever it was, then you have a lot of downtime. Actually, most of your time is downtime. So all of that type of stuff, pranksters and all that type of stuff, you can do. But when you're somebody like me, who, I think it was Marina who said to me one day, not in a happy way, she said, "You have more lines in one episode than I have in an entire year." I come on and I'm supposed to, everything had to be really, like this. So there wasn't really much time for that type of stuff from me. I was just really concerned about, did we get that? Okay, what's the next one? And what's the next one? And because you're, on a television show, you will get perhaps 3 takes, as opposed to on a film, you'll get 10 to 15 takes. So, and because Star Trek was really more of a teleplay than it was a television show, a film thing. These were long, and I always was just talking, endlessly talking, that I was just concerned to make sure that everything, all those lines were tracking. So, yes, in the back. Ah, nobody in the back. Yeah.
can I give you 2 quotes? I want to ask about your relationship with Captain Picard. I want to throw out 2 quotes. The first one is, he's devious and immoral and unreliable and irresponsible and definitely not to be trusted. That is Captain Picard about Q. The other quote is, he's the closest thing in this universe I have to a friend. That is Q about Captain Picard. So it strikes me that there's a bit of a disconnect there. How did you as an actor play the relationship with Captain Picard? Did you see him as a friend, a plaything? How did you approach him?
Oh my.
Well, I guess, I mean, you're asking as a character or as an actor?
As an actor, they talk about motivation.
Okay, as an actor. Well, Patrick, what you do is that you go into a room or go into what the setup is, and you at least I do, you think of it as a pie. Who has taken up X amount, how big a portion of the pie? It happens in families, one kid takes over the studiousness, so the other kid, of course, doesn't go to the studiousness. He goes to being, naughty. Okay. Well, Patrick took up the part of the pie called "I'm very serious." So I thought, well, perfect. Then I'm going to take up the pie called "I'm not." So that is in fact what creates conflict. If I were also very studious, it would be just like or serious. It wouldn't work. And also I was playing a character which people would ask me, what's it like to be, omnipotent, or a king, or whatever it is. And I go, well, I'm omnipotent, but too stupid to know. I'm a king with clay feet. So you find that other part, and that's really what you play. Because what's given to you is that you're omnipotent. Well, I don't really know what that means. Somebody once came up to me and he said, "You know why you're so popular?" I said, "No." He said, "Infinite powers, no responsibility." And my kids, I was a Superman fan when I was a kid, but I hadn't gone into the other stuff. I just didn't. I veered off into reading a lot of sci-fi and stuff like that, but I didn't get into the power, power. And one day, one of my kids came down, and this was while I was doing Star Trek, and I realized, oh wow, now I sort of get it. He came down. He was probably around 6 years old. He came down, and he was dressed only in underwear. Right? And the underwear was Batman. He goes, "I have the power!" And it showed Batman. I went, oh, like that. And then he went like this. And underneath it was, the Incredible Hulk. And then underneath that was Superman. And then I go, so he, as far as he was concerned, putting 3 pieces of underwear on gave him real power. I went, well, this is very interesting. People are actually interested in this at a young age, too. So, yeah.
How was it working with your son on that episode on Voyager?
How was it working with my son on that episode on Voyager? He was the one who was the power, by the way.
Oh no.
It was, is this water recent? Or is it I see things growing.
It's today.
It's today. It was okay. One of the things is that as an actor, you have to operate sort of selfishly in that you look out for yourself. You look out for the scene, all that type of stuff. But in his case, I was really looking out for him. And I just was not quite as prepared because I was so concerned about how's he doing. Whereas normally when you work with somebody else, you don't have to be concerned about that thing. Obviously, if they have trouble, I mean, we always have, actors, might have not feeling well, or they didn't learn the lines well enough, or stuff like that. You lend yourself to them, but you don't lose yourself in them. And in that case, my concerns were mostly with him. So, if this had been a play where we could get over it, it would have been probably fine. But in this case, it didn't lend itself to, I felt a little off balance because of it. Yeah, yes.
When you did the Q versus Spock debate, was that just did you just go in and both of you guys met there at that time and read it, or was there any sort of rehearsal process to that?
Oh, no. I mean, I commissioned, can't remember her name, to write it.
Okay.
Then I went back and worked with her to get it to where we wanted it to be. Then Leonard and I rehearsed it.
Okay.
And then we did it. Yeah. Yeah.
What on-screen moment has given you the greatest sense of accomplishment as an actor?
What screen moment?
Yeah, on-screen.
Oh, I don't really watch very much. I mean, people seem to be, of late, really affected by Breaking Bad. I think that was a good character to the extent that I was really the only victim in that show, a true victim in that show. And a lot of people were touched by that. So, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. What role kind of excites you right now, like or upcoming from the upcoming series?
Well, I'm doing a symphonic piece of a new Dr. Seuss's The Sneetches, and a Spanish composer by the name of Palomo has just written a new work. It was commissioned by a doctor, Dr. Sidney Sobel, and we did a two-piano version in Rochester in January. I'm going back in May to do the orchestral version of it, and I'm going to be at Oberlin in Ohio to do a recording of it. I'm excited about it because it was a piece that the NATO commander during the Bosnian War asked that this particular piece, this Dr. Seuss piece, be translated into Croatian, and 750,000 books of it were handed out to the population. It essentially was to try to get people to stop killing each other based on a very sort of simplistic but highly moral, very complicated, had resonances about tolerance. They're the Sneetches that have stars on their bellies, and the Sneetches that don't, and the ones who don't feel good about themselves. And then a guy comes and he says, well, I can get stars on your belly, and then those people get stars on their belly, but the ones who haven't go, well, wait a minute, then what despise? Well, we don't want stars on our belly. So the guy goes, well, I can take the stars off your belly. And then the other ones go, well, my gosh, maybe we should. And he goes back and until finally at the end, they realize it doesn't really matter. People are people, or in this case, the Sneetches are the Sneetches. So that means something to me. I'm off to do I'm going to be writing a new 5 concert series. I've written a lot of shows for symphony orchestras, and so many people go, well, I don't know, I don't understand classical music. So I just thought I could take people in a 10-hour period, 5 2-hour concerts, I'd say, that actually won't be that long, but, and actually have them come and get a whole sonic and contextual experience of what was going on, what was was the history like? What were people doing? Why is it that instruments took over for voice? Voice was it. And then, you know, technology created instruments. And then people began to go, I like that sound. And it's a louder sound. And, you know, and all this type of stuff, and being able to take them all the way through. So I'm going to do that. I have a couple, I finished a show, a little short, which I think was very good. Terry Polo, she was in the Fockers, and it was a show called The Marriage Counselor, and it's a really touching story about a woman who comes to a marriage counselor, and I start off. Clearly, it's been a couple of years that she's been coming, and I'm pissed. And I go, "Where's your husband? Is he in the parking lot? I mean, is he not here again?" And go, well. What you discover is that her husband has left her, but she has left her. Okay. And what you discover is that actually he had to stop to go to the office at 9 o'clock in the morning in the Twin Towers. So he's dead. And I'm trying to get her to say that. And she keeps on saying, no. He's run off with that bimbo. He's run off and he has used this. And then what you discover at the end is that my wife died there too. So we have this symbiotic relationship, and it's a very intense little film about it. And it's really good as you're watching two people sort of try to organize themselves and their lives around each other. And it's very antagonistic, only to discover that they actually need each other. And at the end, she goes, well, I'll see you again next week. And he goes, yeah, I'll see you next week. Yeah.
You've been in the entertainment industry for a long time. I was wondering if you could speak about how you feel Hollywood has changed for the better and for the worse during the course of your career.
Did everybody hear that? Well, just from an acting point of view, it's become more and more difficult. It used to be that you would walk, and I think that this is the same probably in many industries. It used to be that you would walk into the room and there would be the director and the casting director. When I did a movie for Peter Weir, that's the way it was. When I did a movie for Terry Gilliam, that's the way it was. Now you walk into a room and there might be 10 people in the room who are watching. You are being filmed, and that film then has to make the rounds of all the people who have some say in it. So the chances of you getting people who are on the outer edges of the bell curve have less and less opportunity in that. It's sort of like too many cooks in the thing. What are the choices that they're going to go for? Ultimately, very often, it's the most bland, the most middle of the road choice. The other thing is that now when we go, most people don't know, when they do it, let's say a television show, they don't know that they're going to get picked up. So oftentimes they don't get the order that they're going to get picked up until 6 weeks before they have to start shooting. I have recently finished a show where they were getting lines, I was getting lines, the night before. Beyond what anybody who did not have a photographic memory would be able to learn. It's all become, there are too many cooks. I think one of the reasons that cable has done so well is that they are using an older model. Therefore, they are encouraging people, their writers. Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad, I couldn't have that on regular television. Or many of those shows. So, it's become more of a producer's medium than it was an art medium, artistic medium, and it's becoming more and more so. Yes, in the back. Oh, that's all right.
Project myself.
Yeah, yeah.
for a second. What has been your best and worst fan experience?
I have a lot of wonderful fan experiences, and I have so few bad experiences. You know, sometimes people are really, they finally make it up to the line, and then they don't know what to say, so you're sort of helping them out or something. There's one that I remember but it was years ago now, when I was walking down the street in New York. It was right at dusk, and a very, very scary guy starts walking towards me. And I began to walk. He was coming from the other side of the block. I mean, we both got up and we're walking in this direction. And I moved, you know, he's over here and I moved over here and he moved like this. Until he got till he came right up to me. And I'm looking up like this. And I thought, I'm going to get mugged. And he gets really close. And he goes, "Are you cute?" I said, "Yeah." "Can you bring people back from the dead?" I said, "Well, only people I like." Cool. And he walked off.
When a scary guy comes up to you, do you often wish you were an omnipotent being?
That's right. That's right. All right, next question. Yes, ma'am.
Out of all the Q episodes you've done, is there an episode you want to do over and over again because it was so much fun?
I think I handled the question of fun. I think the last episode of Next Gen was the best in terms of, I had created a series of facets. I mean, when I first came on the show, I wanted to include a little bit of humor. Absolutely not, absolutely not. So, but by the time I left the show, I think I had done 6 episodes for them. I had enough facets, you know, I mean, sides of the character going. And I thought that the last episode allowed me to revisit those in a really good, clean way. This is just actor babble right now. But I mean, but I thought, well, that's good. I have about 4 or 5 scenes. They're good scenes. And so I liked that episode. I thought it did a really good job. Of course, there were elements of the other episodes that were a lot of fun and what have you. But there, I thought, was a good culmination of my brief stint on Star Trek. I mean, I've done 9 episodes of Star Trek, that's all. So, but I thought that was a good one. Yeah. Yes?
What medium would you say you're happiest working in, whether it be television, shows, or music? Where do you feel happiest?
Which medium do I feel happiest? Well, I don't have a happiest medium anymore. It used to be I would have said, well, a play, but I just finished a play and it was just like, I think for me, I like bouncing around. I just like bouncing around. The notion that I've done, let's see, since 1st of January, I've done 2 concerts, a movie, 2 television shows, some voiceover work, and wrote and began to write this new series. That sounds good. Tasty morsels. Yeah.
Do you think that you're going to do some more voice acting work for cartoons, or has My Little Pony kind of scared you off?
I've done actually another My Little Pony. which is coming out. No, I love that. It's great fun. It's great fun. And, you know, actors always say, well, you know, the best part is you don't have to, you know, you can roll out of bed and of course, I usually look like I've just rolled out of bed. You can just roll out of bed and show up at the studio and do your work, and that's the end of it. I guess also during that time, I've also done a couple of new video games. So I enjoy it. I enjoy it. Yeah. I wouldn't want to do it all the time. I wouldn't want to do any of these things all the time. Yes.
You were talking about how you've been doing voiceover for video games. Are you in the new Assassin's Creed game? Because you were in the last one. Do you have a much bigger role in this one if you're in it?
I'm not in the new one.
Oh.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. That's it. That's you.
How are you interested in becoming this?
You know what? Take the whatever you've got in front of your face down. Okay, there we go. Ask me the question.
Can you just speak up a bit there?
You have to speak up. We just can't hear you.
How are you interested in becoming Discord, My Little Pony?
Can somebody convey it?
How did you get interested in playing Discord?
Discord in my
Like, how did that happen?
Oh, I just got a call and they said, would you come in and do this? I had no idea what it was. None. And I'm still sort of mystified by it.
Can you talk about working with Leonard Nimoy with Alien Voices?
Oh, Leonard is great. I had directed a show, War of the Worlds. Or actually, Invasion from Mars is what it was called, which was the Orson Welles show. And at the end of it, I said, Leonard, did you have a good time? And he played the lead. And he said, I had a great time. And I said, well, I have an idea for us to do more of these. And he said, come to my office and let's talk. And I pitched him the idea of Alien Voices. And we did, I don't know, 6 or 7. I was talking to the producer of the show a couple of weeks ago, and we were just reminiscing how those things simply don't exist anymore. I mean, the amount of production value that went into those shows. By the way, if any of you are interested, I'm just slowly getting them onto the, for downloads for the internet. So you can go to alienvoices.net, and for $10, $9.99 or something like that, you can get these shows. And they're 2-hour dramatizations of Invisible Man, First Men in the Moon, Lost Worlds, I don't know.
It'll be a surprise.
It'll be a surprise. As well as, then we took them to the Sci-Fi Channel, and we did them as live stage shows for the Sci-Fi Channel, where you can see how they're done. So, and that was great fun. And then we added more to those. We did a Halloween version, which had the Mark of the Beast and the Canterville Ghost, and all that stuff. So we had a great time. We ended up stopping after about 4 years because we were now in the business of selling, and neither of us are salespeople, and we really didn't want to do that. So it was just like tasty morsels. Yes?
It's been several years now, but you and several other Star Trek actors went on the show The Weakest Link, and you guys set records on that show. Do you remember anything about your experiences going on that show?
No. Yeah. Yeah.
Do you ever have any regrets on any of the roles you passed up?
No, if I pass them up, I don't usually have a regret about it. I mean, one of the problems is with film lasts forever. There was a role that I was asked to do. I said yes, but it's really violent, and I cannot do certain things and won't do them. Don't worry, we'll take care of it. that I agree with you, John, this won't be in the film. I said, fine. I was sent a new draft of it the night before I was supposed to shoot, and they had me overlooking I'm embarrassed to say it. Well, of course I didn't do it, so I'm not that embarrassed. A gang rape where then the woman gets gasoline poured on her. And I went, oh my God. And I called up and I said, how did this get done? He said, well, you know, the producers, and they think it's really important. I said, I'm out. I'm out. And I'm really sorry to do this to you the night before, but I'm out. And I'm really glad never to, I mean, I would be so embarrassed to have done that. So, so I don't regret the ones that I didn't do. I regret the ones I didn't get. But not the ones I turned down. Yes.
So about Breaking Bad, you were only in a couple episodes, but they're really emotionally intense. So was it difficult? And what was your favorite part of Breaking Bad?
I was in 4 episodes of Breaking Bad. Probably the best thing about Breaking Bad is that they are very attentive about the work that they're doing. It's really high level work. And everybody is involved at that level. So that there's time that's taken. There's a great deal of detail that's put into it. And everybody steps up to the plate, fully prepared to hit a home run. And hope that you do. Emotionally, it was a difficult role to the extent that not that it's difficult to have the emotions. It's difficult to extend them over many, many hours, 10, 12 hours. And so I did a show, I did Fearless, where there's a plane crash in it. And, you know, that took a couple of days to shoot. So just to find it each time. And then, of course, what you discover is that you can really never recreate. You can only create. So you have to, you know, there's all that stuff going on. So that was one of the things in Breaking Bad, which is just technically difficult. But in terms of when writing is good, it just goes right into you. You're affected by it. And then your job is to sort of get out of the way so that the audience can be affected by it. You know, you are only a mirror for them. So when they are looking at it and they're seeing somebody whose daughter has died, and I'm picking out the dresses for her funeral, an audience puts themselves in my position. And so you have to act in a way that they can do that.
I cried a little.
Yeah. Actually, I remember that scene. I began to go, oh, don't go there, John. I mean, right now. No, don't go there. I mean, because I have children, and that would be just, so, you know, those are not difficult emotions to find. They're just sometimes difficult to maintain over a 14-hour shooting day. Yeah. Yes?
Was it hard for you and Comicon to keep your seriousness while you were filming the episode when you had to seduce her?
Was it hard for me and Comicon to keep our seriousness? Well, we were always laughing and what have you. We didn't have to keep our seriousness, frankly, because it's not really a serious scene. But one of the big problems I thought about my involvement in Trek with Kate was that they were so concerned that the captain, Janeway, not be seduced by Q. And I kept on going, yeah, but that's sort of the 800-pound gorilla. Why don't we deal with that? Let that happen and then hook up. So if you don't, there's no real tension involved. We're sort of ignoring what the audience is actually ahead of us about. But it was always fun to work with Kate, so that was that. Yes. Yes.
A lot of your well-known roles, Stargate and Star Trek, and from what I gather, My Little Pony. Have you played, maybe not necessarily a villain, but an antagonist? Is there any reason that a lot of your well-known roles are sort of that?
Because I have the voice that I have, the forehead that I have, and, you know, that's how I'm cast. I mean, interestingly enough, on stage, I'm cast as the hero. In film and television, I'm cast as, you know, the asshole.
Talk about working with Patrick Stewart, because you said, you know, when you walked in, you realized he was going to occupy as Picard that serious slice of the pie.
Right.
You would go another direction, but even though his character is quite serious, people talk who know Patrick Stewart about the fact that he's really quite funny.
Right.
We saw that in extras as well. What do you think he brought to the role of the captain? Why did he encapsulate that role so much?
Well, he brought a weightiness to the captain, and I guess he would have been in juxtaposition with Bill Shatner, right? I mean, okay. So when you consider Bill and Patrick, I mean, it's again the opposite side of the coin.
Right.
Right. So I'm sure when they were casting, they were considering that, because if you know, in a play, I just did or not just a while back, I did a show, Bourgeois Gentilhomme, and there's a constant talk about the countesses coming. The countess, the most beautiful, oh my God, she's the most beautiful, the countess is so beautiful. Well, this begins to up the expectation in the audience's mind. So you either have to cast it with somebody who is really beautiful or find a troll. Because anything in between is not going to fly. Well, it's the same thing I would imagine in their going over what it was that, what were they going to do after Shatner? So are we going to find, you know, even more of a cowboy sort of thing, which was going to be difficult to find because Bill really encapsulated that role. So you go to the other side. No, we're going to find, you know, a bald-headed intellect with a British accent. Kind of go, wow, that's really so we have broken that mold, and now we can start looking in this direction. And they did it very successfully.
Did you and he laugh together a lot on set?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, yes and no. I mean, there were times that we had some good times, but mostly it's just really, right, it's like this, you know? Okay, yeah, I'm going to answer you. I want to make sure people have, yes?
You probably get this question a lot, but what made you decide that you wanted to, what you like to act, you wanted to do this?
A little louder.
What made you decide that you wanted to be an actor, that you were like, I want to do this?
Because I wanted to sleep with Gene Roddenberry. When I was in school as a young lad, I was not a very successful student. I had gone into a school, a very, very well-known school private school in Philadelphia, and we had each grade had 3 forms. Form 1 was the smart kids. Form 2, you know, were the average kids, and then the stupid kids. Okay, I mean, and you know, and there was nobody minced words about it. Well, I was in Form 1 of my what do you call it? entering class, and it was, you know, like, whatever, kindergarten. I don't know what the first grade, whatever, in the very beginning. But by the time I got to the 5th grade, I was in Form 3. And what was interesting about it is that there had been a switch that had taken place. Those of us in that class, Form 1, were all taught a new way to read, which had nothing to do with phonetics. And by the time we got to 5th grade, we had flipped, and we were now in Form 3. And most of us flunked out. So it was an experiment that didn't work. I then went to a couple of other schools, and finally rested, I think, in 6th or 7th grade at the Booth School. That was the first place that somebody said, oh, well, yes, on top of not being able to read very well, he has dyslexia. And it was the first time that I had ever had someone, or it had ever been said, how do I put this? It was the first time somebody hadn't used the word stupid. It was another name for something. Now, nobody knew what to do with that name. You know, was there a program? Or how did you relearn how to read or anything like that? So I'm now 14 years old, and I've had a career which has been not very good in school. And a teacher comes in and he says, we have 2 months, you know, whoever, just with the green light there, guys, enough, right? He says, at the end of the year, which was 2 months away, I think we were in, whatever, March or something like that, we're going to do Henry V. And Delancey, you're going to play Hal. And he went around the room and he cast. And, you know, I'm in 7th grade, 8th grade. I don't remember exactly. And I did the show. And there was a person there who came to see the show, the grandfather of one of the kids in my class. And he happened to be the editor of the Pelican Shakespeare, which is I don't know if you have it out here, but it's a pretty well-known edition of Shakespeare. And he went to my father and he said, if your son has an interest, you should encourage him because he really has a flair for this. And so, for the first time, I was good at something. Well, let me tell you, I grabbed onto that like it was the life preserver that it was. And that was the thing that made me go, I need to learn how to read. It was very difficult for me to learn the lines. I barely could read the Shakespeare. But I did it. And I went out and I performed it, and, you know, I guess some people, well, a lot of people thought I was good. So the following year, or that summer, I read my first book, actually, my first full book, which was The Mysterious Island by Jules Verne. It took me a month to read it, and we were on vacation, and I just spent the entire time indoors, which my parents were delighted that I was reading, but like, well, we came on vacation to be outside in the woods, and you're spending your time reading. But it was a great read, and it's what got me into science fiction. And then I began to read out loud. I was asked to deliver a speech not too long ago for an award of poetry. It's the largest poetry cash prize for poetry in the world. It's $113,000 cash prize that's given every year. And I wrote this long speech about why poetry was so important to me, because this whole issue about reading, I also had this really, what you could make a good connection with in terms of psychologically. I used to steal books from the library at school. And I created a library in my room, which my parents never figured. But I couldn't read these things. But I was collecting things like, you know, Locke's second treatise on government. The complete works of James Joyce. I couldn't read this stuff. But I was surrounding myself, clearly, you know, a little, okay? But one of the books that I got was the Golden Treasury of Poetry. Now, people who are more my age might remember that book. And what I loved about it is that you open the page, and it wasn't just block print going all the way down where my eyes would start swimming and what have you. They were little poems, you know, like that. They were all manageable. So I began to read those poems, and I began to read them out loud. And that's how I began to see words. Well, one of the things is that I still to this day have no phonetic capabilities because we weren't taught that way. We were taught to visualize was. That's the word was. But was and saw kind of look the same if you're dyslexic, you know. So I began to piece all of this together. And then, you know, what age am I up to now? 15, let's say, 16 at the most. I'm now having a girlfriend. And one of the requirements is that she had to listen to me read out loud. Because I realized I have to get good at this. And when I was 17, I took my first professional audition. And I had prepared it, and I walked in, and it was in it was at a real theater in town, and it was a big deal. It was a big deal. And I walked in, and I did it. And the guy said, "Oh, well, pretty good." And he handed me new material. And to this day, I will never forget, because it was just, he handed me them to me. He said, "Well, why don't you read this?" And I started to do this. And I'm looking down, and within seconds, off the tip of my nose, sweat is dripping onto the page. I was in a panic. And I just said, "Well, I know," and I got through it, the involvement with it was a mess. The next day, I got a call. I mean, my parents got a call saying we would like to have, you know, John in it was Bourgeois Gentilhomme, actually. We would like to have John in the Molière production of Bourgeois Gentilhomme. I couldn't go back. I was so embarrassed by that. So for me, all of these things were, I'm now completely lost what the question is. But for me, all of these things were building up. And I jumped onto this notion that I was good at something. I knew I had to work at it. I did work at it a lot until, you know, and kept on pushing through. But it's never something that will leave me in that respect. So learning lines is always difficult. Reading, I write plays, I write shows. I live by words, and yet words were my bête noire for most of my life. So that's a very long-winded story, I'm saying.
Well, we're all very glad that you persevered and stuck with it because we love the work. We do have to wrap it up.
Okay.
But a big thank you for coming.
Okay.